Season 2 of The Mandalorian does not want to stop with all of the surprises that it keeps giving us, and we're going to be covering all of the new surprises right now. Hello everybody and welcome back to Joker's Movie Network. I'm your host Joker, and today we're going to be breaking down chapters 12 and 13 of Season 2 of The Mandalorian. Do note that spoilers will be following in this video, so if you haven't seen Season 2, you might want to click off of this now. Or if you have seen it and you want to see more of a deep dive into these episodes, go check out my new Star Wars YouTube channel that I just started, Star Wars from a Complete Point of View, where I will be breaking down everything Star Wars from Legends to canon, including The Mandalorian, in more of a deep dive fashion. So if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to that channel and keep up with all of my Star Wars content. But we're going to stop wasting time and go right ahead into Chapter 12. Chapter 12 starts off right where we left off, as every episode does, with the Razor Crest just being beaten to hell. I don't know what it is about this season, but the Razor Crest keeps getting damaged, and it shows. After learning from Bo-Katan that he has to take the child to the forest city of Caladan on the planet of Corvus, he has to stop for repairs, because due to the current state of the Razor Crest, if he tried to travel all the way there, the ship simply could not handle it. So after landing, he meets up with Cara Dune and Greef Karga, who turns out are doing pretty well for themselves now that the Empire has been driven out of the city. Greef Karga orders some mechanics to start working on the Razor Crest, and they go into town. We learn that Navarro 7 is doing pretty well once again now that the Empire is gone, and the city is looking better than ever, which even includes a statue of IG-11 in the main city square. Upon arriving to the bar where we first met Mando talking with Greef Karga about bounties, we learned that it is no longer a bar and it has actually been turned into a school. Having a school in this area I think is really awesome because we don't get to see a lot of places like this. But after discovering that there's some business that they need to talk about, they decide that it's best to leave the child in the school where he'll be safe while they go and talk business elsewhere. Upon doing so, we realize that the Mythrol is out of Carbonite and is serving his life sentence of 350 years by doing community service for Greef Karga. So Cara, Greef, Din, and the Mythrol are all briefed on an outpost that was left by the Imperials on the outskirts of Navarro. They believe the military outpost to be empty, but if anyone from the black market were to find what was hidden inside of it, they would all be in big trouble, including a lot of dangerous weapons and vehicles of all sorts. They decide it would be best to blow up the station so that no one can be able to use it ever again. They all end up traveling out to the outpost and making their way inside to realize that it is not abandoned and that it is still being patrolled by Imperial stormtroopers. After Din questions that he thought the whole station was abandoned, Greef has no idea why there are still stormtroopers here or what they could possibly be doing at this outpost. After blasting their way through a bunch of stormtroopers, they come across two men dressed in what looks like Kaminoan cloning uniforms, very similar to what we saw Dr. Pershing wearing in Season 1. After realizing that there are intruders, they decide to get rid of all the evidence and start shooting all of the command boards in front of them so they would have no access to any of the information hidden there. And after getting rid of the cloners and trying to get access into the broken control panels, they discover a very chilling sight. Across the room from them, built into the walls, are what looks like pods, and in these pods are very deformed beings of some sort. We don't know if they're human or alien races alike, but it definitely looks like a makeshift cloning facility where they're trying to bond different life forms together and it's failing miserably. And we learn a little bit more about this after we find a recording from Dr. Pershing on the control panel. The recording states, "Replicated the results of the subsequent trials, which also resulted in catastrophic failure. There were promising effects for an entire fortnight, but sadly, the body rejected the blood. I highly doubt we will find a donor with a higher M count, though. I recommend that we suspend all experimentation. I fear that the volunteer will meet the same regrettable fate if we proceed with the transfusion. Unfortunately, we have exhausted our initial supply of blood. The child is small, and I was only able to harvest a limited amount without killing him. If these experiments are to continue as requested, we would again require access to the donor." Din believes that this is an old recording because he knows that Moff Gideon is dead. However, it is only until the Mythrol tells him that this recording is only from 3 days ago, to which they discover that they need to leave Navarro 7 because Moff Gideon is still after the child. After recalculating some of the settings inside of the outpost and rigging it to blow, they decide to get out of there after blowing their way through a bunch of stormtroopers, scout bike troopers, and some TIE fighters on the way back to Navarro 7. Din goes back to the school and collects the child, and they are out of there because they know that Moff Gideon can't be far behind. After Din leaves, Captain Teva of the New Republic shows up yet again to make an official report as to what happened at the Imperial outpost. He claims that Imperial still working there means something bad is happening, and he is afraid for what the future holds for what the Empire is planning. The last scene brings us aboard an Arquitens-class light cruiser, where an Imperial officer is talking to an alien species, the same alien that put a tracking device on Din's Razor Crest when they were doing repairs in the beginning of the episode. After confirming that the tracking device has been in place, she claims that you will be rewarded in the new era, possibly referring to the First Order. The Imperial officer then goes to confirm with Moff Gideon that the tracking device has been placed upon the Razor Crest, to which we see Moff Gideon standing in a room with more cloners and an army of Dark Troopers, giving us a satisfying end to Chapter 12. Honestly, while it was slow in some places, I really liked the feeling and the vibe we got from Episode 12. Even though it does kind of feel like filler, it's still, being important to the story and adding everything together, giving us that deeper backstory into what Moff Gideon is actually planning to do with the child. But then the stakes got even higher in Chapter 13. While we were expecting Ahsoka Tano to eventually show up, we did not necessarily think that she was going to be showing up within the first 20 seconds of the episode and sticking around for the majority of it. Rosario Dawson is doing a fantastic job of bringing a live-action version of the character to life, and I could not have been happier with her performance. We see her iconic white lightsabers as she's cutting down a bunch of scout guards on the outskirts of the city, slowly making her way up to the front gate. We come to learn that this city is holding people hostage and is holding out some information that Ahsoka is requiring. Ahsoka explains to the magistrate that she has one day to come up with a solution before she starts storming the gates herself. The next morning, Mando lands and he begins to make his way toward the city to see if he can find Ahsoka Tano. Upon reaching the same gate that Ahsoka was at last night, he explains that he is a member of the guild and is only looking for a layover, so they let him into the city. He comes to discover that this city is also being held hostage by some highly found ruler. Upon trying to ask some questions, the guards approach him and say that the magistrate would like to see him. Upon meeting the magistrate, she offers Din a spear of pure Beskar as payment for a bounty that she wants him to complete. She wants Mando to go out and kill a Jedi that has been plaguing her for some time. Termination of Ahsoka Tano will get him this pure Beskar spear. He agrees to take the contract and goes looking for Ahsoka, but obviously not to kill her. Upon his travels throughout the forest, Ahsoka proceeds to jump him and they end up fighting. We discover that Beskar is actually resistant to lightsabers, which makes this a whole lot more interesting of a fight, especially after she gets the upper hand, to which he replies with, "Wait, Ahsoka Tano, Bo-Katan sent me." Ahsoka then stops as well and says, "I hope it's about him," referring to the child. We move into the evening time where Ahsoka has been sitting with the child for some time, only to discover that they haven't been talking, but rather feeling each other's thoughts. It is here that we get the official name of the child, which is Grogu. Ahsoka goes on to explain that Grogu was trained at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant by many masters, and upon the rise of the Empire, was taken from the temple and hidden, and after that his memories go dark, as if they were erased. Grogu has been suppressing his Force abilities in order to stay hidden from the Empire since everybody's looking for him, and Ahsoka says that in the morning, she will test him to see if he still holds his abilities. The next morning, Ahsoka begins to test Grogu's abilities by trying to see if he can return a stone to her hand using the Force. We discover that he's kind of afraid and does not want to use his powers, but when Din steps in front of the child with the sphere from the gear shift in the Razor Crest and asks him to take it, he does it without hesitation. Ahsoka then realizes that Grogu has formed a strong attachment with the Mandalorian, and because of this, she cannot train him, because she has seen firsthand what attachments can do to a fully trained Jedi Knight. Din proceeds to make a deal with Ahsoka, claiming that the magistrate sent him to kill her. If they work together to overthrow the magistrate and free the city, she will train Grogu. They end up making their way into the city, and it turns into two separate movies. We have a standoff with the Mandalorian and the captain of the guard, and Ahsoka ends up in her own horror movie as she walks through corridors, taking out guards one by one. She ends up making it over the inner city walls and into the private area where the magistrate is, and she begins fighting, while Din continues his standoff. During the fight, we see the magistrate, or Morgan Elsbeth, fighting with this Beskar steel against Ahsoka's lightsabers. As the battle starts, Ahsoka is just wanting one answer, which is, "Where is your master?" and continues to ask the same question throughout the fight, until disarming her, where she finally asks, "Where is your master?" Where is Grand Admiral Thrawn? Which shows that Ahsoka is still trying to find Ezra Bridger, who went off with Thrawn at the end of Star Wars Rebels. They end up freeing the village, and Ahsoka ends up giving the Spear of Pure Beskar to Din, saying that it belongs with the Mandalorian. Din simply replies by saying, "I'll go get the child, meet me at my ship." Ahsoka appears at the ship ready to claim the child when she tells him once again, "I cannot train him." But there is another way. The other way, Ahsoka explains, is to take the child to the ancient planet of Tython and place him amongst a seeing stone. If he chooses to reach out with the Force, Grogu will choose his own path, and if he does so, a Jedi may feel his presence and come looking for him and decide to train him. Which leads us down quite an impressive deep dive into Star Wars lore and Star Wars history, showing that as we lead up to the season finale of Season 2, we may be getting a lot of answers toward the ancient civilizations of the Jedi and what Moff Gideon is planning, and if all of this takes place on Tython, this is going to be one hell of a series. But that is it for my breakdown of chapters 12 and 13. What did you think of these episodes? I, for one, thought 13 was way better than 12, but both of them go hand in hand with giving us a lot of information. I thought seeing Ahsoka in live action was fantastic, and a lot of the little hints and Easter eggs that they dropped in chapter 13 were truly wonderful. But what do you guys think? Did you like chapter 12 or chapter 13 more? Were you hoping to see more lightsaber action, or were you hoping to see a little bit less of Ahsoka to focus more mainly on the Mandalorian and the child? Let me know in the comments down below. I want to talk about it. And again, if you want to see more of a deep dive on these episodes, go over to my Star Wars channel, Star Wars from a Complete Point of View, and we can get into all that action there. But until next week's episode of The Mandalorian, that is going to be it for this video, guys. Remember, if you like what you saw, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know in the comments down below if you want to see more Mandalorian videos, or if you'd like to see anything else. But until then, and as always, I will see you guys next time.